Hey everyone, my name is Contessa Alsop and I will be going over HTML entities. I know we've been introduced to this just recently this past week, and I'll just be going more in depth about it so it makes a little bit more sense. But what are HTML entities? It's a text string that starts with an ampersand and ends with a semicolon. And they're essentially symbols. So there is an entity name and an entity code, and either can be used in HTML. And I'll show you examples of the difference between a name and a code. Um, why do we use HTML entities? So your editor may not support Unicode, which you pretty much don't have to worry about this. It was really common in the past, but it's pretty unlikely now that that would be the case. Another reason could be your file isn't saved to match UTF-8. And our videos in our lesson briefly talked about this, and I'll show you what that means exactly. But it could result in symbols not displaying properly if you're using like keyboard shortcuts to do symbols. So if they're not saved the same way, it could display completely wrong. Um, Another reason to use HTML entities is it can be easier to remember than keyboard shortcuts, which for me, I don't know any keyboard shortcuts pretty much unless it's directly, I can see it on my keyboard. And so the way that they're written out, so this is the name version of an entity. So for less than, you've got the ampersand and then an L and a T and the semicolon. So L for less and T for than. You've got ampersand, so it's AMP, it's just shortened, or for apostrophe, it's APOS. So all of these are pretty self-explanatory when you look at a bunch of examples where they're getting that name from. Another reason is that your keyboards don't support the symbol you're needing. So it could be as simple as that. There may not be a way to do a keyboard shortcut, so using entities would be easier. Um, and then I think a really big one is you need to escape reserved characters in HTML. So essentially what a reserved character is that basically they have a special meaning when used in an HTML document. So you can't use a greater than or less than sign, or even angle brackets, because the HTML text, the browser will read it as like a beginning of a tag. So, and it'll draw a different meaning than what you're actually wanting to say with these brackets. Um, an ampersand will be treated as a beginning of an entity instead of a standalone character. So if you want to do um, Sam ampersand Sally, so you're saying two people's names with an ampersand in the middle, there could be a chance that the browser will read that HTML text as a start of an entity and it won't display properly. Um, some other ones that could be that are specially reserved characters are um, apostrophes and quotation marks. We usually use those for special attributes, and so that could be also a problem. Here's a bunch of examples. So this link I'll put in the description of the video so you guys can get to it. I know it was also in the dev board for this past week as well, but this is just a screenshot of some of them. It's probably the most common that we'll come across. You've got the @ sign, asterisk, the number sign or hashtag sign, copy, anything. And so here's actually just more of them. But when you go to the actual site and hover over, this is where you'll see that entity code that I was talking about. So it's got the name up top and then the code. And the code usually consists of a lot of numbers. Some of them are shorter than others, some are longer. You can see here that the vertical bar has a couple different entity names. So any of these can be used. Whatever really works for you guys. I mean, there's a ton. Here's ones for, oh my goodness, accent marks. That's what they're called. And this is really important too if you're obviously speaking in a different language. English doesn't use this that often, but I mean, this is important too. So you've got Greek symbols, there's just tons. So you don't have to worry about trying to figure out the keyboard shortcut on this or where to find them. This site honestly has so many that you can look through. And then I'll show you how to apply these. So this is just a couple screenshots. I'll do an actual demo of how to do it. It's pretty simple, but essentially in orange, you've got the entity. And so I needed the copyright sign. This is just pulling from my index HTML that we did the first or second week. And so it's really simple. You don't have to use any brackets. You don't have to it's not a tag. It's a standalone own thing. And as long as you start with an ampersand and a semicolon, you've got the entity down. So I'll show you it in action. So right here, you've got copyright symbol. Obviously, if I leave it like that, the browser's going to literally show it as copyright symbol written out, and we don't want that. So what we would do is just take that out, and then you do ampersand, and I'm pretty sure it's copy, and the semicolon. And then this is a different text editor than what we've been using, but I'm pretty sure ours changes the color too, and that will show up, and we'll load the screen in a second. So another one is this vertical bar. You can see that on the keyboard, but if a browser doesn't support it or you don't save the file right, that could show up wrong. And so to use a entity for it, it's @ and then verbar semicolon. And we want another one here, so we do it again. And so we'll save this file, and I'll show you what I mean about it not being in the same format. So actually, let me point out this. So we've got the meta tag, and we establish essentially what character language we're using. And it's UTF-8. So you go to File, Save As, and then encoding is where you would find all of these different languages essentially. And so it's important to make them match. So then, especially if you're doing a Chinese or Japanese where there's physical characters in their writing, it's important for them to match. So then your browser knows what to pull and for it to look the right way. So you'd hit save here. I've already saved it. But another thing I want to show you guys is what I was talking about with, let's see right here, when you need to escape reserved characters. So let's say you want to actually show people what codes look like, not in a text editor. So that's kind of confusing, but you'll see what I mean. Nope, I don't want to edit the links or the, oh my goodness, I'm blanking. Lists. So let's go, we'll just do a paragraph right here. So you're creating a website that shows people how to write HTML. And you want to show them how to do a div tag and an attribute with it. So instead of writing div and then ID, whatever, if you do that, it's going to edit the actual HTML that you're in. It's not going to display like this, even if it's in a paragraph tag. So what you would want to do is use HTML entities. So you do an ampersand, and then since we need to do a less than symbol, you do LT semicolon, and then here you can actually write the text as is, and then equals, and then quotes could also be misinterpreted because it's a reserved HTML character. So you would do ampersand quote. So that's how you do quotation marks. Character, and then another, you want to end it with quotation marks. So and then you need to end it with a greater than symbol. So that'd be GT. And that's how you would finish, and then you just finish the paragraph tag. So you hit save, and I'll show you how this displays on your browser. So let's pull that up. Open HTML entities. Okay, so we've got up here, we've got the vertical bar in the title. That's displaying totally right. We've got the copyright symbol. You can actually see it instead of it saying copyright. And then this is what I was talking about. So if you wanted to explain how to write code, this is exactly how you do it. So it shows up right here. Obviously, I'm just messing around with the index that we did originally, so it's not great formatting, but that's how HTML entities work. It's fairly simple, and it's a good way to just ensure that everything's going to display properly on your site. So, thanks, guys.